Zambia has 480 forest reserves made up of 175 national forests and 305 local forests. The country also boasts of 20 national parks with 36 game management reserve areas, 8 Ramsar sites, 42 important bird areas, and 8 major fishery areas. In these various areas lives 12,505 different kinds of organisms. However, biodiversity loss has reached unprecedented levels in Zambia, mainly due to anthropogenic activities in pursuit of economic gains by the various players in an array of sectors. Economic drivers form a large share of factors affecting biodiversity loss, with agricultural expansion alone accounting for over 70% of forest cover loss. Annual deforestation, on the other hand, ranges from 79,000 to 270,000 hectares due to an increase in urbanization, which has been exacerbated by the policy and regulatory factors.
Some of the challenges that Zambia faces in conserving its biodiversity include overharvesting of its natural resources, such as forests, wildlife, and fish, to mention but a few. The other challenge we face is inadequate capacity to enforce the laws that we have put into place. This is largely due to low staffing levels in the institution managing natural resources, coupled with inadequate modern equipment, especially for monitoring natural resources use. Inadequate financial resource for biodiversity conservation institutions, largely due to the limited resource envelope and competing needs in the country, means that these institutions operate below their expected potential.
UNDP Zambia is very pleased to be a part of this program of support, working with key partners within the country. We see BioFin answering some critical questions in terms of policy, institutional frameworks, and the current financing mechanisms to ensure that we work towards biodiversity conservation. Additionally, through BioFin, UNDP Zambia, in collaboration with other key partners, has been able to further look at the analysis that is required to strengthen financing for biodiversity by looking at the expenditure patterns and ascertain what really needs to be done to ensure that we have a sustainable environment.
While some of the key drivers of biodiversity loss are universal across key biodiversity sectors, some of the issues are quite specific to the sectors.
There are major drivers of deforestation, which are actually physical impacts that you see on the ground in different areas that you can visit within the country. And these relate to permanent change of forest cover, which are driven mostly by agriculture, which is responsible for over 74% of the total deforestation rate for this country. The second one is actually settlement expansion, which is responsible for well over 24% of the deforestation rate. And the third one is actually infrastructure development.
The authority currently receives about 15 million of government funding against a projection of about 98 million. That represents about 15% of what is required at the moment. Our other source of revenue are the collection of fees and charges. These fees and charges, at the moment, we are projecting about a collection of 8 million against a capacity of about 15 million. So meaning we are at about 50% collection rate. Now I must mention that on the fees and charges were last revised in 1982. So up to now, as we speak, the charges that people pay for the use of water are dating as far back as 1982. So in the Zambian context, they are as low as 5 kwacha, which is something that does not represent what it takes to manage water resources. The other driver, of course, is the fact that the country has not been able to manage water through a catchment management system, which this Act has now embedded that we need to manage our water resources through the establishment of catchments and also establishment of catchment management plans. So the establishment of catchment management plans is what is going to help us to factor in all aspects that are related to biodiversity.
The main drivers of loss of biodiversity in the fisheries sector, we have overfishing, we have illegal fishing, and illegal fishing here involves the use of destructive fishing gears. Then we have loss of fish habitats, that is as a result, in most cases, as a result of sedimentation. We also have invasives. The invasives that are introduced in our water bodies can also result in the loss of biodiversity. We also have certain developments that can involve, especially the damming of our rivers, has resulted in some loss of biodiversity in our rivers.
The major threat to loss of biodiversity in Zambia's protected areas, specifically those set aside for wildlife conservation, is poaching. For example, in the Kafue flats alone, we have lost close to 70% of the population of the Kafue lechwe through poaching, a population which has declined from the 1970s to what it is today. We have also seen an increase in loss of wildlife habitat through land degradation. Is increased demand for agricultural land. With of course the growing population, we are having that pressure of demand for land in our protected areas. Wildlife as well is facing loss of habitat through the invasive species such as the Mimosa pigra, which is found in the Lokimva National Park. That seems to be taking up space for wildlife as well as the waterfall.
Between 2010 and 2017, the budgetary allocation for environmental protection remained low at an average of 0.6% of the national budget, compared to other budget lines, notably FISP, which had a budgetary allocation of 2.29% over the same period. Under the same period, donor funding financed 73% of the country's national budget towards environmental protection. As part of the preparations for the development of Zambia's Biodiversity Finance Plan, a number of proposed finance mechanisms have emerged.
We have now come to a place where we have finalized the issuance of regulations through our ministry, the Ministry of Water Development, Sanitation and Environmental Protection, in collaboration with the Ministry of Justice. So these regulations will be issued, I think, in not too long from now as I speak. And what is very key about these regulations are two things. One is that in the preservation of our groundwater resources, we have now provided for the licensing of all drilling companies, meaning all drilling companies in Zambia will now be registered by WAMA. We'll issue them with licenses, we'll control the drilling standards in the country, we'll ensure that all boreholes that are drilled in the country follow a specified standard as stipulated by WAMA. Secondly is that there will be a nominal fee now which will be charged on the kind of abstraction that we think has an effect on our groundwater resources. So people that have got that use groundwater on commercial basis will now pay fees and charges to WAMA as those that have been using surface water resources have been paying. The other interesting part is also that mining companies, for example, that do dewatering activities from the mines, will begin to get licenses and obtain those licenses from WAMA, because we want to minimize the over-abstraction of our groundwater resources. The Water Resource Management Act mandates WAMA to collaborate together with the Zambia Environmental Management Agency and establish these ambient water quality standards. Now, these standards are important because these are the standards that are going to make sure that those that are polluting water resources are regulated in the country. So far, we don't have anything that governs the management of ambient resources. What we have are the effluent discharge limits that come from ZEMA. But of course, as we are establishing these standards, we are working together with ZEMA so that even as we issue out penalties on people that are polluting water resources, we do this as a joint effort.
Ideally, we like to see government to increase our budget allocation. We need more vehicles. We need to recruit more manpower going forward. We need to improve the infrastructure for our officers in the field, both accommodation as well as our operational bases. So through that, we expect that we could be ahead and that we need our budget allocation could be increased. As a department as well, for us, of course, to justify increased budget allocation, we need to also contribute to the generation of revenue for the department as well as the country. This we tend to, like I mentioned, is to streamline our revenue generation base through increase the revision basically of the various fees that we have for animal licenses, park entry fees, and many other license fees that need to be revised because this hasn't been done in a long time. Since 2007, the fees have remained stagnant. So it's about time that we increase the fees. We need to also introduce other fees, but at the same time also not increasing the cost of doing business for our business partners, the outfitters, the operators, and so on. So with that, we expect to increase our revenue generation base by almost double or 3 times if that process of reviewing the statutory instrument for licenses and the fees is done.
The Forest Act number 4 of 2015 has also established the Forestry Development Fund, which fund will actually constitute monies which Parliament will actually allocate to this Forestry Development Fund. It will also constitute any monies which probably any other cooperating partners may actually, donate to the Forestry Department, just to enhance sustainable forest management. We want also the local communities to participate. We are in the process of developing the community forest management regulations, which regulations give local communities an opportunity to establish what we are calling community forest management groups, and also to enter into agreements with the forestry department. In so doing, certain user rights will actually be transferred to the local communities.
Financing, of course, the budgetary allocations we need to improve. But apart from improving the budgetary allocation, we need to think of how the revenue that we are collecting can be channeled back into the sector to ensure proper regulation of the fisheries sector. Otherwise, it is generally agreed that the fisheries sector, if adequately funded and properly managed, we can have a situation where the sector can actually support itself. Currently, our licensing capacity, we only probably license about 15% of the fishes that are on our lakes and rivers. But if we manage to license even at least 80% of the fishers, then our financing capacity will be improved and we will be better able to manage our fisheries.
Moving forward, we all know our work is related to the SDGs. And of course, for us, we see it as a priority that we continue to strengthen capacities and engagement in country to ensure that we have appropriate and sufficient funding for biodiversity.
Our focus in this regard will include the following. 1. Advocating for increased the budget allocation towards biodiversity conservation as a percentage of the national budget. 2. Enhance public budget execution by improving timely budget releases and working towards ensuring that budget funds are actually released. 3. Devising mechanism for biodiversity sectors to improve in their revenue generation efforts, including through reviewing existing rates and fees, as well as advocating for retention of part of the generated revenue to improve operations. 4. Reforming physical and non-physical incentives to encourage investment in biodiversity conservation.
The fight against biodiversity losses is still far-fetched, as the funding gap is still too huge, coupled with weak enforcement of existing laws. However, as a precursor to the development of the National Biodiversity Financing Plan, Zambia needs to undertake an analysis of existing and potential financing solutions, some of which have been highlighted by the sector players to prioritize financing for nature. There is need for continued commitment in ensuring that biodiversity values are practically integrated into the 7th National Development Plan, SENDP, provincial and district development plans, and other planning processes, as well as being incorporated into national accounting and reporting systems as appropriate towards the attainment of Zambia's Vision 2030 of becoming a prosperous middle-income country by 2030.